Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another one of our Tapping In webinars. Tonight we're going over part 4 out of 6, going through how you, as a business owner or executive or an interested party, can actually go about tapping in to the market segment of people with a disability or impairment. So let's get straight into it. We've got a lot to cover tonight. 30 Foot Drop acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders both past and present. Must always remember that under the concrete and asphalt, this land is, was and always will be traditional Aboriginal land. We would also like to acknowledge the Department of Communities Disability Services for funding this and many other initiatives like it. Without their support, so many projects such as Two Wise Monkeys would never actually see the light of day, and as a community we would be much poorer for it. This workshop is part of the Realities and Advantages of Access and Inclusion grant awarded to 30 Foot Drop as part of the Information Linkages and Capacity Building grants of 2018 to 2019. Bit of housekeeping before we get into the information. Unfortunately, we do not have the resources to monitor all of our live streams during the live session. So if you want to ask any questions live and interact with us, please head to www.30footdrop.com.au/live. Now, as I said earlier, we'll be covering a lot of information tonight. So we recommend that the attendees take actions to minimise distractions where possible. If you really enjoy today, please jump on social media and let everybody know. And if you hear anything tonight that you think would be useful for your friends or other colleagues and that to know, please share these with them. Let them know. We'll also be recording this session and posting it. So if you want to review it or you don't have the opportunity to watch the entire thing and you want to actually finish watching it, it will be on our Vimeo library, 30 Foot Drop Vimeo library, or our YouTube channel. Either place is where you can find it. If you're having trouble locating it, please get in contact with us and we'll help you find it. We'll be referencing research during our session today. All of the source material is actually available on the 30 Foot Drop Digital Resource Library, which is an amazing place to find all sorts of information and peer-reviewed articles, as well as various checklists and references to different Australian standards. So I really encourage you guys to check that out if you get the chance. At the end of the webinar, we also have a short survey for attendees to complete, so please take the time to fill this in. It's just 6 questions, take you 30 seconds, and it would help us immensely. You'll find that, once again, on our live webpage, 30footdrop.com.au/live. And if you scroll down to the bottom, there'll be 6 buttons, and this is webinar number 4. And if you could fill out that survey, we'd be really, really grateful. Thank you. Allow me to quickly introduce myself. Okay, I'm Ben. Okay, I am the managing director of 30 Foot Drop, and I am See No Evil of the Two Wise Monkeys. I am a C5 quadriplegic, and I had my accident approximately 13 years ago. And 30 Foot Drop was inspired by my accident. It has been the crucible that has actually led to me being where I am today. You see, I started to get really frustrated about society's ignorance about disability not long after my accident, when I suddenly realised that, hey, I was as blissfully ignorant as everybody else about this part of the community, and how can I be angry about that if somebody's not out there actually teaching it? So that's what I decided to do, and that's where 30 Foot Drop comes in. We educate the community about disability and impairment through open, honest conversations. I am See No Evil because hopefully by the end of tonight, you will see no evil about disability and impairment. The other presenter, who you will see doing some of the webinars, is Lisa. She is Hear No Evil. Now, I won't ruin her story because I think it's amazing, but Lisa has an invisible impairment, and unless you hear about it, unless she tells you about it, you would never even realise. That is why she is Hear No Evil, because after you've heard her story and she's educated you, you hear no evil about disability or impairment. But wait, aren't there supposed to be 3 wise monkeys. Who's the third? Well, the third's going to be you. By the end of tonight, hopefully you'll speak no evil about disability and impairment as a result of the information we've passed on to you. So, how are we going to get you started on the path of the wise monkey? Well, there is a lot to learn, okay, about people with impairment and how they can increase your businesses or your customer base by attracting them there. So we'll be looking at 3 main areas of need that most businesses can improve and use to tap into the market. The 3 areas are accessibility, universal design, and diverse marketing. After we've covered these 3 subjects, looked at them in detail, we'll finish off with an open forum session where you can feel free to ask any and all conversations that you want, any questions that you have. Now, these questions, they don't have to be specifically on what we're covering tonight. They can be about anything. As we said, 30-foot drop, open, honest conversations is what we're about. How are we going to do this? What will be our teaching method? Well, fun, experience, and open, honest conversation, again. Okay, you will notice that there is very little written content on my slides. That's because you're here to interact with me, the presenter. Okay, in order to facilitate this, I really encourage you guys, once again, to head to www.30footdrop.com.au/live. Okay, that way you've got the chat box there and you can interact with us as much as you need. Okay, we're going to do a quick little terminology review to make sure that we reduce any confusion and ensure any understanding around some of the terminology that I'll be using tonight. Okay, first up is the difference between disability and impairment. Okay, an impairment is an injury, illness, or congenital condition that causes or is likely to cause a loss or difference of physiological or psychological function. In short, an impairment is your medical diagnosis. Okay, for example, I'm C5 quadriplegic. Okay, that is my impairment. Okay, it isn't my disability. Okay, that's because a disability is the loss or limitation of opportunities to take part in society on an equal level. With others due to social and environmental barriers. Okay, that's what a disability is. Okay, it is, as the word implies, something that makes you unable or disables you from being able to access or participate in something. The next bit of terminology I want to look at is the difference between access and inclusion. Okay? A lot of companies think of access and inclusion as one big homogeneous lump, but it's not. It's actually 2 different things. First, we'll look at access. Access refers to the removal or reduction of barriers, both physical and attitudinal, to participation in the activities and functions of a community. Okay? At its core, access focuses a lot on the physical world around us and is easily assessed with a checklist with many Australian standards out there that exist. Inclusion, on the other hand, is a psychological state of being, okay, and is the process whereby every person, irrespective of age, disability, gender, sexual preference, or nationality, who wishes to, can participate fully in all aspects of an activity or service in the same way as any other member of the community. You'll have to excuse me for one moment. We just seem to be having a slight technical difficulty. I'll be back in one moment. Alright, we're back. Sorry about that. Where were we? Yes. So terminology review. So that is the main terminology that I like to cover before a webinar to make sure that we all can actually get the most out of this and we don't have any confusion around any of the terms that I use. So hopefully that has made sense. If not, please jump on to www.30footdrop.com.au/live and ask any questions that you have, and I'll answer them as we go. But for now, let's have a look at how to tap in to the market segment of people with impairment. Okay, as I mentioned in the overview, there are 3 strategies that businesses can use to tap in. These are accessibility, universal design, and marketing. Okay, they can be used individually, but it is actually best if you use them concurrently together. Okay, you will get your best bang for your buck out of that. So, let's start off by having a look at accessibility. Okay, when businesses think of accessibility, or when most people think of accessibility, okay, they think of wheelchair ramps, they think of ACROD spots, they think of automatic doors. Okay, now these are all good examples of accessibility, but it is accessibility, physical accessibility, sorry. And there are so many more ways than physical accessibility that businesses can use to be accessible. There's so many more different subjects. So let's have a look at some of the others. Okay, there are 6 main ones that I like to focus on when it comes to businesses improving their accessibility. Okay, and the first one is information. Okay, you need to make your information accessible. Okay, it's important not to make assumptions about how people can receive or communicate information. The best approach is to make important information available to consumers in a variety of formats. Okay, you need to basically ensure that there is a wide range of options for people to receive any communication you are trying to actually get across. Okay, so options could include making sure that you can do it orally, whether that be in person, over the phone, and making sure that your staff have got concise, effective ways of relaying the information. Okay, you can also make sure that you've got hard copy written material available, especially when you look at having large size 18 font print options. Okay, you could also have electronic formats, including by email, websites, online chat services, available by computer disk, audio recordings. Okay, these are all examples of how you can increase your information accessibility, because information is key when people are trying to choose how to or what businesses to use. They need to know more about your business. So to make it as accessible to as many people as possible is the best way to get more customers. The next way businesses can improve their accessibility is actually by maintaining their accessible premises. Okay? A lot of businesses, especially if they're in more modern buildings, have already got an accessibly designed premises. But if it isn't maintained properly, it can be disastrous, and in some cases, downright dangerous. Here are some issues to be aware of. Okay? Make sure that you don't lock your accessible bathrooms or lifts whilst the premises is in use by members of the public. Okay? And ensure that your accessible bathrooms can continually be reached by an accessible path of travel. Okay? Don't put displays in the way. Don't move stock in the way. Don't use your lifts as a storage area. Okay? And don't use the bathrooms as a storage area. Okay? Don't use accessible bathrooms or change rooms as storage areas. Accessible bathrooms are big, yes, but they are designed that way so that they can be used by the most people possible. Okay? Some people have massive mobility requirements if they have a power chair or something similar. By putting stock in there, or by using it as a storage area or a cleaning closet or something similar, you are restricting the number of people who can use it, thereby restricting the number of customers you're going to attract, because you don't have the ability to be able to serve them properly. Make sure that you don't construct temporary displays or stack goods in a manner that obstruct aisles, okay, or reduce the actual thoroughfare. Make sure that your counter heights, lift buttons, FPOS facilities, door handles, etc. continue to be within reach of a person using a wheelchair or someone of short stature. Okay, those are all examples of how you can maintain an accessible premises. And by doing so, you'll continue to actually tap into this market of people with an impairment. The next area of accessibility to look at is transport. Okay, if your business provides transport options, then please be aware of the following. Okay, ensure information relevant to passengers with impairment is provided on the Transport Services website. Such information may include things like specific booking in processes, requirements for passengers with impairment, location of accessible buses and train stops, timing of accessible services, as well as other access features. Okay, a great place to look at if you want a good example of this is the AirAsia website. Okay, they do a brilliant job of having all of this information on there and really provides a great example that others can follow. Also make sure that you provide training to frontline staff on the delivery of accessible transport to passengers with an impairment. Okay, this means that if you have specific products in place, make sure they're properly trained, otherwise it gets dangerous. Okay, not only for the person with the impairment but for your staff as well. And lastly, make sure that you take steps to inform booking agents, for example travel agents, of relevant considerations for passengers with impairment. Okay, so for example, if you require the person with impairment, the traveller, to demonstrate fitness of travel, or that there are certain carriage restrictions or access features, okay, you need to make sure that your booking agents know this so that they can inform the traveller face to face at the time before they make the booking. Okay, so those are my main tips for businesses that have transport options. Let's move on to mobility devices. Okay, mobility devices can be a point of contention with businesses, okay, and their customers. But the thing is that under the Disability Discrimination Act, it may be against the law for an owner or manager of a shop, restaurant, club, or other venue to refuse entrance or restrict their restrict the access of a person who uses a mobility device to only certain parts of the premises. Okay, this is especially important when considering people who use these devices as a mobility device. Okay, people who need these items in order to get around your premises. An example of this, okay, would be small shops who restrict mobility due to large amounts of stock, overstocking their store so that therefore people with mobility devices cannot get through. Okay, restricting access to your shop by legislation may be illegal. Bear this in mind when laying out your shops. Okay. Another tip around mobility devices is assistance animals. Okay, you need to be aware that a guide dog is only one form of assistance animal, and that there are other assistance animals, such as those that assist people with hearing impairments and medical conditions such as diabetes, or as assistance animals for people like myself who have restricted mobility and ability to be able to pick things up or open doors. Okay, if you're unsure if an animal is an assistance animal, okay, so somebody brings a dog in or another animal in, okay, the law says that it is okay to ask the person if it is okay to ask the person to provide some evidence that the animal is an assistance animal and that it has been trained to meet the behaviour and hygiene standards appropriate for an animal in a public place. Okay, if they provide that evidence to you, then that animal is allowed anywhere in your business that members of the public are normally allowed to access. Okay, so restaurants, movie theatres, anywhere. I really recommend that you provide this information to your frontline staff in order to actually stop any occurrences of this actually going on. So, in summary, you need to make sure that your shop is accessible by people with mobility devices and that you're not trying to restrict their access to there, and to make sure that you're informed and your staff are informed about assistance animals and their rights. The next way businesses can increase their accessibility is their online content. Okay, the internet is by far the favoured way for consumers to get information about goods and services. This research is often done prior to consumer physically visiting a storefront, and by making your information accessible, you'll encourage more customers to actually engage with your business. The guidelines available out there are the Web Content Accessibility Guides 2.1. Okay, this is a guide that has been put together by many people in the disability community about how businesses can actually make their content as accessible as possible for as many people as possible. You'll find it at www.w3c.org. Okay, really great place to go to and have a look at. I will quickly outline some of the advice that they have there for those that don't have time to look at that properly. Okay, so things to keep in mind are items such as material that's only presented in image-based formats, such as GIFs, TIFFs, JPEGs, PNGs, will not be accessible to some people with impairment, as screen readers cannot actually interpret them. Okay. Next thing to keep in mind is when designing a website or content for a web page, avoid using fonts that are decorative or stylized, okay, as they are really hard for some impairments to read, such as dyslexia. Okay. In addition to that, make sure that there's enough contrast between the foreground text and the background colors to make sure that the text is easy to read. If you're providing content in a PDF format, please provide the same information in a Word or HTML format as well, as a lot of screen readers cannot actually read PDF documents. Make sure that you include text descriptions for all non-text content. Okay, this includes all images and graphs. As an example, images and graphs. Okay, use the alt text function where possible. Okay, most website design programs actually have the ability to be able to add alt text to images, and what this does is it provides a prompt for screen readers to read out whilst highlighting the image. Okay, amazing function, really easy to add. You should also make sure that you avoid scanned pictures of text, for example a photo of a menu. Okay, as screen readers can't actually use these. And you should make sure that you provide captions and or transcripts for any multimedia that you have on your website. Okay, so this is all your audio and video content. YouTube has a rapidly improving automated closed caption maker. Okay, that is very easy to use. I really recommend making use of that where possible. And look, at the end of the day, make sure that you have technical support available for consumers who need assistance using your website, okay? And this can be via online chat session, phone or email, okay? Or a help bot, a chat bot as well can be used. And lastly, test the accessibility of your website, okay? If you have customers that you know have an impairment, ask them to test it and give you feedback, okay? And where necessary, speak to an accessibility professional. There are plenty of them out there. The next way businesses can improve their accessibility and tap into the market is by modifying how they plan for events. Okay. Now, we'll be covering accessible tourism and events, looking at the opportunities in greater details in part 5 or 6 of this webinar series. Okay. So these tips that I'm about to go through now are looking specifically at the physical event. Okay? So when planning events, including meetings, festivals, conferences, lectures, and fundraisers, businesses need to take all reasonable steps to ensure that the event is accessible so that people with impairment can attend and participate. Okay? Consideration should be given to the issues raised in each of the earlier sections that we're talking about with accessibility, in addition to the following. Okay? The first thing you should do is to explain the accessibility of the venue on the invitation or registration form and request attendees to inform you of any accessibility requirements that they have. Okay? Examples of what to include on the registration form include access process or maps for people with impairment. Okay, explain the accessibilities in the maps for people for using wheelchairs, and also, explain whether handout materials will be available in accessible electronic format on request. Okay. Additionally, with a physical venue, consideration should be actually given to making sure that there is sufficient clear and simple visible signage to direct people where to go and where to find certain things. Ensure the venue is large enough and set out in such a way that people with impairments, including using mobility devices such as wheelchairs or scooters, can move freely around the event, even when the venue is full. When setting up seating arrangements and allocations, allow people with impairment a choice of seating, including options with a clear view of the stage and speakers platform. This is particularly important for people who have a hearing impairment. Ensure that any speakers that you have at the event are aware that if they're using PowerPoint slides or videos in their presentations, they need to provide the same information in a format which is accessible for people who have a vision or hearing impairment. Okay? For example, speakers could provide an oral description of the PowerPoint slides. Sorry. Of PowerPoint slides, provide hard copy, electronic and or audio copies of material ahead of the event, or use captioning or Auslan interpreters during the presentation. Oh, excuse me, I've got something caught in my throat. Let me just have a quick drink. Okay, my last tip has to do around the event staff as well. So, brief the venue and registration staff about their responsibility to avoid discriminating against people with impairment. Okay, and about any access issues, such as allowing people using assistance animals into the venue. Make sure they know the location of the accessible toilets and availability of handouts. This information could all be provided to staff before the event in a pre-event briefing. It's very, very easy to do. And lastly, look at giving a specified staff member responsibility for addressing any accessibility issues that arise on the day of the event, and make sure that all staff working at the event are aware of who this person is. This gives a centralised point of contact and actually results in a more expedient resolution of any issues that arise. So those are the accessibility tips that I have for businesses on how you can actually increase your accessibility to tap into this market. Now we're actually going to have a quick look at universal design and how that can be used to tap into the market of people with impairment. So what is universal design? Okay. Universal design is the design and composition of an environment so that it can be accessed, understood and used to the greatest extent possible by all people, regardless of their age, size, ability or impairment. Okay? In short, it is when society designs with everybody in mind. So what is the business case for universal design? Why should businesses care about it? Okay? Well, when done right, universal design is much more than just catering for customers with a disability. Okay? It can have the following business benefits. It can increase your market reach. Okay? A universally designed product will be usable, accessible and appealing to a wider customer base than one that isn't universally designed. Okay? It can enhance customer satisfaction and retention. Okay? A satisfied customer will tell other people about the product, service, or environment, increasing awareness and potentially creating more custom. Okay? This is magnified by the increased customer market reach because you're suddenly getting more primary customers that are actually telling more people. It can also have a market crossover success. Okay? Products that are aimed at a specific target group can sometimes generate interest and demand from unforeseen markets. The OXO Good Grips range is a well-cited case study of how a specialised product design, in this case it was designed with older people with arthritis in mind, can actually generate a widespread demand. That said, those kitchen tools are now popular and widely used through much of the market, where they were originally designed for a very niche market. A universally designed product can create a positive public image for a business, okay? Because it shows that the business positively contributes to society by incorporating a universal design approach and is likely to receive a reputation for having a high level of corporate social responsibility, okay? This then leads into ethical consumerism, which we cover in detail in webinar number 3. Increased customer expectations. Okay, it can help to meet them because in recent decades, the voice of the general public has become more prominent and more influential. Universal design enables companies to design products and services and environments that more closely match the consumer expectations and needs. And lastly, a universally designed product can increase chance of acceptance at first use. Okay. The thing is that a consumer forms an opinion about a product at first use or even first sight. A recent study suggests that internet users take less than 1/20th of a second to judge the visual appeal of a website that they have visited. If a first impression is negative, a consumer is not likely to pay for a product. Okay? If the product is simple, clear, easy to access, and easy to use, a consumer will be more likely to proceed with a transaction. In other words, if it's universally designed, okay, the consumer is more likely to proceed. So how do we achieve universal design? Well, if you're looking at universal design for people with impairment, the most effective way is to actually collaborate with and employ people with impairment. They can actually guide the process with their experience. Now, in addition to this, there are also 7 principal topics to note when striving for universal design. Okay? These are equitable use, flexibility in use, simple and intuitive use, tolerance for error, perceptible information, tolerance for error, low physical effort, and size and space for approach and use. Let's look at these 7 principles in detail, or in more detail. Okay, so first up, equitable use. The design should be useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities. Okay? Some guidelines for this. Okay? You should provide the same means of use for all users. Okay? So identical whenever possible and equivalent when not. Okay? So for example, if you have ramps instead of stairs everywhere around your business, then that is identical because everybody uses the same mode or the same way of getting from place to place. Okay? If you have ramps and stairs in your business, then that is equivalent means of use. Okay? Because there is a way for everybody to get around. It's just not the same way. Okay? Another thing to think about as well when designing this is they should avoid segregating or stigmatizing any users. Okay? So an example of this would be having wheelchair access through the kitchen only when designing a cafe or a restaurant. Okay? that segregates and stigmatizes a user by making them have to take a completely different entrance to everybody else. You should make sure that you have provisions for privacy, security, and safety, and they should be equally available to all users. And you should make the design appealing to all users. Okay, so those are the guidelines around looking at universally designing using equitable use. The next one, flexibility in use. Okay, the design should accommodate a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. Okay, for example, the use of flashing lights with sirens or beeping sounds in warning or emergency situations is a great example of this. Okay, by doing this, it ensures that people with reduced hearing and reduced sight can know what to do. Okay, because if it was just a flashing light, those with a sight impairment may not actually realise that there is an emergency situation occurring. Okay, and same for those with hearing impairments if it is just an audible noise only. Okay, so some guidelines towards this. Okay, you should look at providing a choice in methods of use. Okay, you should look at accommodating right and left-handed users. You should look at facilitating a wide range of users' accuracies and precisions. And you should provide adaptability to the user's pace. Okay, that's how you can use, or that's how flexibility in use is a principle for universal design. The next principle is simple and intuitive use. Okay, this is the use of design is making sure that the design itself is easy to understand, regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration level. Okay. The universal male-female symbols on bathroom doors are a lot easier to understand than stylized script. Okay, so some guidelines around this principle. You should look at eliminating unnecessary complexity. You should make sure that you're consistent with the user's expectations and intuition. You should make sure that you accommodate a wide range of literacy and language skills. You should arrange information consistent with its importance. And you should provide effective prompting and feedback during and after task completion. Alright, let's move on to the next principle, and that is perceptible information. Okay, you should make sure that the design communicates necessary information effectively to the user, regardless of ambient conditions or the user's sensory abilities. Okay, an example is the raised tactile indicators pictured on the left. Okay, they not only warn people with a vision impairment, but also warn others of an upcoming hazard. Some guidelines around perceptible information include making sure you use different modes, okay, for redundant presentation of essential information. So making sure that you use combinations of pictorial, verbal, tactile in order to actually convey your message. So tactile ground sense or TGSIs, tactile ground sensory indicators. Okay, not only are they tactile, but they're also visual because you make sure that they're supposed to have a contrast with the surrounding area. Okay, which actually feeds into the next one, which is providing adequate contrast between essential information and its surroundings. Okay, making sure that the essential information is attention grabbing. You need to maximize the legibility of essential information. Okay, make it so that people can understand it, so that they can easily find the information. Differentiate the elements in ways that can be easily described. For example, make it easy for people to be able to give instructions or just directions on how to actually use your product. And lastly, provide compatibility with a variety of techniques or devices used by people with sensory limitations. Number 5, tolerance for error. Okay, you need to make sure that your design minimises the hazards and the adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. For example, guards and handrails on ramps provide a tolerance for error when using the ramp. Okay? If I'm flying down a ramp in my wheelchair and I don't get it quite right, I'm not going to go flying off the edge of it because it has the handrails and the nosings along it. So some guidelines around tolerance for error. You should try and arrange your elements to actually minimize the hazards and errors. Okay, so the most used elements should be the most accessible. The hazardous elements should either be eliminated, isolated, or shielded. You should provide warnings of hazards and errors, and make sure that there are fail-safe features available as well. And you should also, wherever possible, discourage unconscious action in tasks that require vigilance. Okay, you don't want somebody to be able to mindlessly make a mistake that may injure them. Principle number 6, low physical effort. Okay, the design should be able to be used efficiently and comfortably with a minimum fatigue. Okay, for example, installing a lever door handle means that it can be opened using an elbow or a closed fist, but also benefits people carrying shopping bags as well as people with limited strength in their hands. Okay, round door handles are a lot harder to use and therefore require a lot more physical effort. So some guidelines around designing items for low physical effort include allowing a user to maintain a neutral body position when using it. Make sure that it only requires reasonable operating forces to use. It should minimize repetitive actions that will result in fatigue. And it should minimize sustained physical effort. Alright, the final principle around universal design is the size and space for approach and use. Okay, the appropriate size and space should be provided for approach, reach, manipulation and use, regardless of the user's body size, posture and mobility. An example of this is accessible parking spaces. They're designed with a shared area and placed closer to building entrance to allow people with mobility devices and other mobility issues and mobility devices easy access to places. Okay, some guidelines around this, okay, is providing a clear line of sight to important elements for any seated or standard user. Making reach to all components comfortable for any seated or standing users. You should accommodate variations in hand size and grip size, and provide adequate space for use of assistive devices or personal assistants. Hopefully you guys have found that guide to universal design and how you can apply it into your business useful. Now we're going to move on to the final one, and that is, one moment. And that is diverse marketing. Okay? So first up, let me explain what diverse marketing is. "50 years ago, a company could be successful marketing only to WASPs. Okay? WASPs are white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And they could be successful because they actually made up the majority of the consumer market. Eventually, some companies realised that the business potential of marketing to other populations was quite high and started to do it as well. And several efforts of multicultural marketing were attempted. But at this point in time, a company could still experience success without it. Today, however, the market is decidedly different. The Australian population has grown increasingly diverse. And if trends continue, today's minority groups will actually make up the majority of the population sometime around 2040. As a result, a general market strategy will not be actually effective. And in fact, it may already no longer be effective in some contexts. requiring organisations to diversify their marketing strategies. Okay, so consumers in different cultures have different values, experiences, expectations, and ways of interacting. Even within a culture, such differences will be apparent between different subgroups. Okay, and this is not just ethnicity, but also age, gender, profession, religion, family size, physical environment, and so much more. Diverse marketing involves acknowledging that marketing and advertising must offer alternative ways of communicating to these diverse groups. With that knowledge, diverse marketers aim to develop a mix of different communication methods in order to reach people in each of the diverse groups present in the marketing. Okay, so what you're trying to do as a business with diverse marketing is to reach as many people as possible. Now, we're going to look at diverse marketing from an impairment point of view. But before we do, why diverse market? Well, diverse marketing is essential, okay? Because marketing is the process of how a business, product, or service promotes its key features and benefits to its customers, which ultimately generates sales for the business by satisfying its customers' needs. Okay? It is essential because the more customers you can reach, the more customers you can appeal to with your marketing, the bigger customer base you have, and therefore more likely you are to grow as a business. Diverse marketing is also powerful. Okay? On average, we are exposed to around 5,000 ads per day, ranging from TV and print all the way down to branding and sponsorship. Advertising is everywhere and continues to be a powerful medium for persuasion and changing attitudes. And lastly, diverse marketing is about connection. By representing people with impairment in your advertising, companies can connect more strongly with those customers, as well as their families and friends. It also demonstrates support for human diversity in a broader sense and feeds back into ethical consumerism, which we covered in the previous webinar, webinar 3. So, there are 3 main ways to diversify your marketing methods, and these are inclusive marketing, thematic marketing, and pride marketing. Okay, let's have a look at these 3. Inclusive marketing. First up, you'll have to pardon me, I just noticed a mistake. There we go. Inclusive marketing. This method, okay, of marketing doesn't actually emphasize impairment, rather it naturalizes it. It naturalizes it by incorporating people with impairment in images and messages incidentally as part of the general community. You know, it makes it look, well, it makes them just another customer enjoying your product who just happen to have an impairment. Okay, this method presents little risk of criticism for disability opportunism, and has broader economic and social potential and is more easily incorporated into most strategies. Here's a great example.
So how was the big wedding?
Oh, haven't you heard? No. So it's at the end of the night, everyone's on the dance floor really getting into it, you know?
Yeah, you are.
And say, this is my left wheel, and this is the bride's foot.
Yeah.
Bush.
How awful.
Well, wasn't all bad. I left with the best man's number.
You are terrible.
Guilty.
I'm not inviting you to my wedding. No. That's it, you're off the list.
So that ad is a brilliant example of inclusive marketing, okay? And that was Mars Chocolates, okay? Other large businesses such as Kmart and Target have actually made use of this method, and the results are amazing. They've absolutely blown them away. I don't have time to go through them tonight, okay? But if you have a look in our digital resource library, you'll find some of the reports that came out from shareholder meetings from those companies around those marketing practices. The next method of diverse marketing is thematic marketing. Now, in a nutshell, thematic marketing actually emphasises the disability or impairment itself, usually conveying an explicit message or comment about it. Now, thematic advertising and marketing, can be done well and may be helpful in showcasing products or services specific to disability or impairment. Okay, but many companies are reluctant to consider it, fearing that they will get it wrong or say the wrong thing and cause offence. And that is a very good point. Now, here is a good example of thematic marketing. Okay.
I can boost your profits.
I can deliver fantastic service.
I can maintain your garden.
I can maintain your fleet.
I can manage your finances.
I can be a loyal and productive employee.
But I can't put my abilities to work
if I'm not given the opportunity.
If you don't recognise my abilities.
If you don't have an open mind.
If you don't employ me.
So what can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do?
You can remember that.
Savvy employers.
No, it's what people can do that matters.
It's what people can do that grows Australian business.
The 4 million Australians with barriers and disabilities
have many more amazing abilities.
That should be used.
Because it's good for business.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Because every Australian deserves a fair go.
Start right now.
Call Forest Personnel on 1800-ABILITY.
It's 100% free of charge.
Get our abilities working for you.
So that's an example of thematic marketing done well. But as you can see, there is the big potential there to actually get things wrong and do a lot more damage than good. All right, last one, pride marketing. So pride marketing is about focusing on promoting what you have in place already, or celebrating any improvements that you do, because most businesses have various impairment and disability related policies and procedures, things like accepting the companion card, offering additional help for people who cannot fill out forms, and so much more. You know, these are amazing initiatives and would actually sway a potential customer with an impairment to use your business. The problem is that nobody knows about it, and that's what pride marketing is all about. By showing pride in your measures, celebrating any changes and acknowledging shortcomings, you're demonstrating your awareness of the issues and actually bringing yourself into the forefront of the mind. Okay, so this is a great example of it. Okay, this is Geraldton. They opened up a new mobility access ramp down to the beach. Okay, great way of advertising. They're getting it out there. They're putting it on social media. They're letting people know that they're all over the issues, that they understand. Okay, brilliant example of it. Now, whilst all of those things are great, I've got a few pitfalls that a business owner needs to be aware of when they're actually planning the diverse marketing. Okay? The first one is that ads involving people with impairment should always be created in consultation with people with impairment. Okay? This will ensure that the messaging will be consistent with your intent. Okay? By doing it in consultation this way, you are ensuring that you don't say the wrong thing and cause offence. The second thing is that you should use people with an actual impairment in these ads, in this marketing, not act as pretending. Okay? You may not be able to tell the difference, but we can. And it will do so much more harm than good. Okay? That lovely picture there is a perfect example on the right there. Okay? And lastly, don't use them in an inspiring context. Just use them as normal people using your business. So hopefully you guys have seen how the three methods of accessibility, universal design, and diverse marketing can be used to generate more business for your business. Now, we're going to have a little bit of open forum time. I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to jump on and ask any questions that you have. Okay? Now, in order to do so, you're going to need to go to www.30footdrop.com.au/live. Okay? And enter any of your questions in there. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, so we'll come back at 7 PM and I'll answer any questions, and then we'll wrap it up for the night. Now, if you're not hanging around for the open forum part, please fill in our survey. Quick 6-question survey that will help. That will really help us immensely. And if you know of anybody that you think would really benefit from what we've gone over tonight, please let them know about this webinar series. We'll be running it up until July. Okay? The more people who know about this, the better. Okay? We're here to help you make more money. So, see you at 7 o'clock to answer the questions. And we're back. Unfortunately, it looks like we haven't had any questions come through, but that is all good. To everybody who has watched tonight, thank you very much. Please remember to let people know about this free webinar series. The more people that know, the better, really. Yeah, with that, look after yourselves, look after each other, and see you next time.